One take, one two. You want more?
So for all you people out there that think President Trump and his supporters are racist, this is my son. This is my son. I love you.
Love you.
So next time you want to talk crazy about Trump and his supporters, think about this. Who's our president, CJ?
Donald Trump.
Who do we like, Trump or Biden?
Trump.
That's right. So whether you like Trump or hate Trump, just know that this is a representation of Trump. People that love each other, people that love our country, people that want to see America great, people that like our freedoms. So next time you guys want to put nasty stuff on Trump supporters, just remember this. Father and son. Love you.
Love you.
All right. Have a good one.
Umbrella. She's up. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live, back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, first of all, I know I've been gone for a little minute, but I had to take care of some personal family issues and dealing with a tragic situation. And when I come on here, when I speak, I try to let the spirit of the ancestors speak through me. And some personal issues was kind of blocking that connection. But understand, it's never going to stop, and I'm never going to stop until this system is destroyed. And now that I'm back, I'm going to start this over like I'm just beginning. And this time, I'm going to go even harder than I did before. And I want to thank everybody still showing your support, still watching the videos, still checking on me. And shout out to my sister, Wanda Chavis, for holding it down the whole time. I appreciate you, sister. But now that I'm back, I'm going to go even harder than I did before. Because we got to understand what we're dealing with. Now, sometimes we talk about our own mental health, and we need to a lot more. But we don't talk about their mental health. We are dealing with a bunch of sociopaths and psychopaths. Nobody builds an empire out of bloodshed, destruction, death without being some kind of a psychopath. And the one thing about psychopaths and sociopaths, they don't have empathy. So how could you ever reason with somebody like that? If you ever talk to somebody with a disorder like that, what do? They gaslight you. They tell you what you're seeing isn't real. You're crazy, even though you have evidence. And in our case, hundreds of years of evidence. They smear the victim, and we all know how that works. They lie, they deflect, and they have no problem lying, cheating, stealing, or even killing. And one of the most important things that they have to do is to make you think that you need them when in reality, they need you. So they will do whatever to keep you in your place. And there's no rehabilitation because they don't believe that they're wrong. In fact, they tell you that you're wrong. And if they repeat a lie enough, then not only would they believe it, we start to believe it. I mean, look up the signs of psychopathy yourself. Socially irresponsible, disregard or violate the rights of others, and they constantly violate your boundaries. That's what they do. That's what they have to do, to destroy your boundaries and to make you think having boundaries is wrong. To make you think saying stop killing me makes you the racist person. So how could you ever reason with a person like that? Why would you want to? Why wouldn't you want to build your own society to hold whoever disrespects you, harms you, or whatever accountable, instead of being in a society built by psychopaths? In Ohio, a young 23-year-old brother, Casey Goodson Jr., was shot in the back 6 times in front of his 5-year-old little brother and his grandma as he walked into his home for no reason. Now, let's go back and try to figure out what happened to this brother.
The Justice Department says it will join the investigation into the controversial police killing of a black man in Columbus, Ohio. 23-year-old Casey Goodson Jr. was his name. He died after a sheriff's deputy shot him on Friday afternoon. Now, Goodson's family says that he was shot in the back at his own home. Authorities say that Goodson refused an order to drop a gun. Jeff Pegues is at the Justice Department with more on this story. Jeff, good morning to you. It's a song that we've heard many, many times, but in this particular case, why are the federal authorities getting involved now?
Well, Gail, the Justice Department is reviewing the details of this case, which, as you note, are in dispute this morning. But the Goodson family, they want concrete answers as to why the 23-year-old was shot.
My grandson just got shot.
On a call with 911, Casey Goodson's grandmother says her grandson has been shot as he entered their home.
I just heard the gunshots and I would get up and he's laying in the door.
The family says Goodson had just arrived home with sandwiches. Just moments before the shooting, Goodson was spotted by a sheriff's deputy who was working as part of a U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force conducting a search for a suspect in the neighborhood. Goodson was not the target of the manhunt. Authorities say Goodson was seen waving a gun as he drove by.
The deputy, at some point after that, he confronted him, and it went badly.
Police claim Goodson then got out of his vehicle and was ordered to drop his gun. And when he failed to comply, the deputy opened fire. Law enforcement has stated at least one person heard that verbal command, and they say a gun was found at the scene. But Goodson family attorney Sean Walton disputes that chain of events, saying no one from Goodson's family heard any confrontation and that the 23-year-old was killed in front of them, including several children.
Casey was executed while walking into his own home. And that's something that, curiously, was left out of the initial statement.
Goodson's family say that they did not see a gun on Casey. They also say he had no criminal record and was a legal gun owner and concealed carry permit holder.
The question that needs to be answered immediately is why was Casey shot for having a gun when he had every legal right to do so?
In an interview with CNN, Goodson's mother says she feels race played a part in her son's death.
Because of the color of our black man's skin, they're not protected. They become targets instead of somebody that they have to protect.
We are hearing from our Columbus affiliate that the autopsy results are expected to be released sometime this morning. The sheriff's deputy who is accused of firing the fatal shot is a 17-year veteran. He's been identified as Jason Meade. Anthony.
Jeff, thank you very much. So many questions in this case. Can't believe we're looking at this again.
I can't either. It's getting very old. But as you said, there are a lot of questions and a lot because the family says there was no gun. They said he was holding sandwiches. There's a big difference between a sandwich and a gun. I don't know what the police officer saw. And we don't know what even led to the confrontation, really.
No, the bigger picture is this happens disproportionately to black men versus other men, and that's why it keeps coming up.
Problem. And the other big question is he was entering his own home.
Yeah. Relatives say 23-year-old Casey Goodson was holding Subway sandwiches, not a gun, when he was fatally shot by a sheriff's deputy Friday in Columbus, Ohio.
Say his name! Casey!
Over the weekend, mounting anger.
And he deserves better. His family deserves better, and they deserve justice.
Authorities say SWAT team members had just finished an unsuccessful search for a suspect when Goodson drove by waving a gun. An authority for Goodson's family disputes that.
The family believes that was totally outside of his character.
Although Goodson was not the suspect the SWAT team was looking for, the Deputy Jason Meade, a 17-year veteran, later confronted Goodson outside his home. Police say there was a verbal exchange and that the deputy shot and killed Goodson.
Prediction is that it was a justified shooting. However, this deputy will be investigated.
Police say a gun was recovered at the scene, but haven't said exactly where. Goodson's family says he had a concealed carry permit and are demanding answers. They say he was shot in front of his grandmother and young siblings after coming home from the dentist.
The family believes that Casey was an innocent man gunned down as he entered his own home.
Late today, the Columbus Police Department turned over the investigation to state officials. No comment yet from the deputies' union. He wasn't wearing a body camera, wasn't required to.
Now, this young brother was minding his own business, coming home from the dentist with some Subway sandwiches for his little brother and his grandma. Meanwhile, the local gang force was out looking for somebody else completely unrelated, and they said they never found the person anyway. But this cop, Jason Meade, claimed he saw this brother riding past them, waving his gun in the air, as if somebody would really be doing something like that. And this brother was a legal gun owner, had a concealed permit, goes through the correct channels to buy a gun, and he knows the rules to a gun, so I don't see why he would just be riding around in his car waving a gun in the air. But like we all should, he may or may not have had a gun on him. Because you never know when one of these psychopaths is going to attack you or say you did something wrong, or you just don't bow down and listen to them and do what they say. But either way, this brother was legit. I don't know how they even started to come into contact or what kind of interaction they had. And of course, this cop had no body camera. But this cop, Jason Meade, claimed he repeatedly told his brother to drop his gun, and he refused. And the police even say witnesses heard him, but they haven't shown one witness, and nobody would say that they heard it. And the only people who could have heard it was his family, and they say they didn't hear anything but gunshots. But the police claim as soon as he got out of the car, that's when his altercation happened. But this brother was able to get out of his car, walk across his neighbor's yard, walk across his own yard, and put the key in the door. Now, the cop said he was refusing to listen to his orders, but this brother was walking into his house, so this cop decided he had no other choice but to shoot this brother 6 times in his back as he was walking into his own house in front of his 5-year-old little brother and his grandma.
I seen the pictures of my son's back. He blew a chunk out of my son's back.
Tamala Payne talking about the bullet wounds left after Franklin County Sheriff's Deputy Jason Meade shot and killed her son, Casey Goodson, Jr. She and her attorney now sharing new information about the December 4th shooting.
NBC4 Carrie Charles was there as the two spoke with hosts of a nationally syndicated radio show. We're talking about The Breakfast Club. Carrie, you very emotional, and I will never forget that mother's cries the night she found out, or the day she found out that her son had been killed.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a long road for her here. She told us that her son was shot 6 times. Tamala Payne says she was shown a photo of her son's body riddled with gunshot wounds. That photo provided by a medical examiner hired by the family. Her attorney detailed the findings during an interview today with the radio program, The Breakfast Club.
We thought that he was shot in the back a few times. Casey's grandmother saw 3 gunshots, but we've spoken with the county coroner that performed the autopsy, and Casey was shot in his back 6 times, 5 times in his back and once in his butt with a high-powered rifle. And he was shot through his screen door as he walked into his own home. He was shot from behind. His keys were in the door. He had Subway in his hand, and so it was a cold-blooded execution, and Casey was murdered, and the world needs to know that.
I did reach out to the Franklin County coroner. Dr. Anahi Ortiz would only say coroner reports are taking between 12 to 24 weeks from the time of autopsy to be finalized. I spoke with Walton and Payne following their initial interview this morning. She says she is opting against publicly releasing the photo of her son's body because she has younger children, doesn't want them to see that image. Remember, Goodson was the oldest of 10 siblings. Payne does worry that photo could be released should the case go to trial. I asked her what these last 68 days have been like.
I mean, it's a hell, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, sometimes I still don't even grasp the fact that Casey is gone. He was 23 years old, he was responsible, he was a grown man, but he was still a big kid at heart. And he was an awesome kid, and he didn't deserve this.
Today, Franklin County Sheriff Dallas Baldwin released a statement to NBC4 saying he wants to emphasize that criminal investigations over the years have shown that the physical location of gunshot wounds alone don't always tell the entire story of what happened. You can read the full statement, including how the sheriff says he will hold any of his employees accountable should any evidence ever show wrongful use of force.
Congresswoman Joyce Beatty tells us she is personally monitoring the investigation into Casey Goodson's death, which she called tragic and a travesty. She says it is important for everyone to remember that while a U.S. Marshals task force was conducting an operation in Goodson's neighborhood, he was not the target.
This young man was not the subject of anything other than coming home to be with his family.
Coming home from the dentist, according to his family, with food in hand.
And this young black man going into his home with sandwiches in one hand, a key in his hand to open the door. And if he had anything else in his hand, I still believe that's not a threat. How could that be a threat?
Pictures shared by his mother show the key in the door and the sandwiches.
I've talked with his mother multiple times. I'm following everything. I'm flying home to make sure that I am in the district as we deal with this issue.
Beatty will be part of a weekend protest of the shooting death and what she calls a flawed investigation.
Because federal investigators are involved, are you getting any insight into how long this investigation might take or where the investigation heads next?
I believe, and I'm being very careful to say what I believe this took too long because I have heard from experts that part of the problem is, again, there was a misstep, that it took too long. So now you have divisions of law enforcement to say they want hands off because it's been too muddy.
Beatty says the case is getting national attention. Other members of Congress are asking how they can help. She says by finding a way to stop cases like this.
We have to make sure as we put Casey's face on this, that maybe it's the face that will bring us together. Maybe it's the face that will help us fight for justice. And certainly his mother wants that justice, wants it brought to justice for her son.
Now, of course, the first thing the police is going to say is they recovered a gun, but they won't say where the gun was, if he was holding a gun, or anything like that. And all this brother had in his hand was some Subway sandwiches and his keys to open the door. And with no body camera, the police aren't even clear on how the altercation or confrontation started in the first place. Now, of course, you got to watch how they word it, because that's another thing people like that do. They word stuff in a certain way. They tried to say this brother got shot in the torso, but they didn't say he got shot in the back of the torso. And he got hit 5 times in the back and once in the butt. And the shots went through the screen door. And before they even start investigating, the cop on the scene, who was the spokesman, was already justifying the shooting. They don't even know what happened, but he was on scene justifying the shooting from the beginning. Just like sociopaths and psychopaths do, they have no problem changing their story in the middle of it, because they realize how ridiculous it is to say somebody was riding around waving their gun in the air. So then the cop said he saw he had a gun when he got out of the car. Now, it doesn't matter Ohio is an open carry state. We saw that with Tamir Rice. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter this brother had a concealed permit, because a black man with a gun is always a threat in America and around the world, really. But of course, they had to corrupt the case before they passed it along. But by then, the DA, the general attorney or whatever, he wanted no parts of it, because it took them 3 days just to give him the case. And there's no telling what they did in those 3 days trying to clean it up.
The Franklin County coroner has completed the autopsy of Casey Goodson Jr. It confirms 6 bullets struck the 23-year-old in his torso. This right here is a copy of the coroner's report. Attorneys for Goodson's family made it public late this evening.
And what we can tell you from our initial review of the findings of this, and we've got to tell you, Carrie and I have had this for less than 20 minutes. The coroner details each gunshot wound. All of them are to the back. 2 of the entrance wounds are listed as being mid-back, 2 left back, and 1 to the right side of his back, also 1 to the right buttock. So again, all 6 bullets to the back of his torso. In addition, the coroner says there were gun fragment wounds to the backs of Goodson's arms. All of the wounds are described in great detail in the post-mortem examination. It describes how the bullets entered his body, the internal damage they did. Also released today, the toxicology results. Goodson's blood was negative for more than a dozen drugs. He did test positive for nicotine products and positive for cannabinoids. However, the cannabinoid level was listed as LOQ. What that means is limit of quantiation. Essentially, the level was so low it cannot be quantified. It can be detected, but it is not measurable.
Now, you'll remember last month I actually sat down, spoke exclusively with Casey Goodson's mother, Tamala Payne, and one of her attorneys, Sean Walton. They told me that the result of a private examination that they had conducted, that it showed the information that we just reported to you. At the time, they said they saw a photo of the body. It showed 5 bullet wounds to Goodson's back and his buttocks. Now, Goodson was shot and killed as he entered his family's home on December 4th. He just returned from a dental appointment, walking in the door with Subway sandwiches for his family. Franklin County Sheriff's Deputy Jason Meade killed Goodson. He said Goodson pointed his gun at him. Initially, investigators also said that Goodson waved his gun at members of a U.S. Marshals task force who were in the North Columbus neighborhood. They were looking for a suspect, not Goodson. A week later, there were also some questions between the U.S. Marshal's office and the Sheriff's office about which agency Meade was actually working for at the time of the shooting, and of course, what actually happened between Goodson and Meade. So many questions because they were the only two there on the scene.
3 months after Casey Goodson Jr. was shot and killed by a Franklin County Sheriff's deputy, more details are released about exactly what happened that day. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Kinsey.
And I'm Yolanda Harris. Tonight, the Goodson family attorney released the final autopsy report from the Franklin County coroner. Note 11 tonight, 10 TV's Richard Solomon spoke with the attorney and Casey's mother about what this means for the investigation.
Jason Meade took my son's voice from him. He was my son. He was my firstborn child. He didn't deserve this.
Tamala Payne and family attorney Sean Walton spoke with me after Walton released the final coroner's report. The report shows Casey Goodson Jr. was shot 5 times in his back and once in buttocks. His mother saying the report should prove as to why Franklin County Sheriff Deputy Jason Meade should be criminally charged.
The doctor that performed the autopsy is telling you where the bullets went, what the bullets did, how the bullets went in. She's giving you the facts right there.
Goodson Jr. was shot by Meade in Columbus on December 4th. He later died in the hospital. In the report that Walton released, it showed the examination was done back in December.
Why release this now?
We need strict action, swift action from Sheriff Baldwin. We need accountability.
10 TV reached out to the sheriff's office following this report. Sheriff Dallas Baldwin released this statement saying, the coroner's report today doesn't provide all of the facts needed to give those answers. Then later saying, when and if credible evidence shows that one of my employees failed to abide by that policy, I will hold that person accountable. But Payne told me she believes this is all the evidence needed to convict Meade.
I believe that the coroner's report brings awareness. I believe it brings the truth. My son was murdered. I mean, that's clear.
The U.S. Justice Department is leading this investigation.
Now, this young 23-year-old brother, Casey Goodson Jr., didn't have a record. And he did everything legit, so it's pretty hard to smear him, but they still try to find a way. They even try to bring up a little bit of weed that was barely detectable in his system, so low they couldn't even measure it. But of course they had to bring something up. And of course the police waited a couple days, probably contaminating the investigation before trying to pass it along. And then of course none of them have anything to say. And as for this cop Jason Meade, this white boy calls himself a Baptist preacher. This white boy preaches at his own church with a congregation of around 80 people. And he literally uses his faith to justify shooting people. He preaches sermons how he's honored to go out and hunt people for a living, thinking he's entitled and somehow it's his right to go out and harm other people. And he's justified in doing it and using his faith to justify it. In one of his sermons, he called it a righteous release. And that's sociopath, psychopath, any of that kind of stuff behavior. And I just hope we as a people aren't praying to the same God as him. Because this not even the first deadly police shooting this white boy has been involved in. But he's still able to go out there and carry a gun and protect the same neighborhoods, quote unquote, protect. And shoot people under the guise of his religion. That's why at the end of the day, we have no choice but to protect ourselves and to protect each other. You can't change psychopaths. You can't reason with the sociopath. They don't think they're wrong. They try to convince you that you're wrong. And at the end of the day, we have to realize we are all we got. We can't go up in their system and change it. Just like you can't take the roots out of a tree and expect it to survive. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And until we learn that, then the same thing will happen over and over and over.
No!
An investigation is now underway in Texas after disturbing allegations of bullying and abuse against a middle schooler. After the mother of 13-year-old Samarion Humphrey says her son endured being slapped, shot at with BB guns, and even forced to drink urine by former teammates of his football team during a sleepover. Joining us now is Samarion, his mother, Summer Smith, along with her attorney, Kim T. Cole. Thank you all for being here. Samarion, I'd like to start with you. How are you doing, and how did you end up going to that sleepover?
I'm doing better. I love the support and stuff. So when it came to it, one of the boys, he invited me over during lunch, and I asked my mom, and she was kind of skeptical at first, but then I just begged her for an entire week, and then I guess she just kind of, well, she talked to the dad, and then we thought it was a good idea, so.
And are these people who had bullied you before, or you thought that they were friends?
Can I cut in on this? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, so what it is we're talking about 5 different people, right? So there was only one that was his friend that he was thinking was his friend. Him and this friend had been over, several times, weeks leading up. It wasn't, they were football together, previous 2 years about, and then he's never had any problems with that particular guy. That particular guy has been nice to him, befriended him, they played the game. So he had no other knowledge of the 3 boys that had previously bullied him coming to that party on that Saturday.
As a mom, how do you feel that your son is doing, and what have the last few weeks been like for him?
The last few weeks have been absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. He thought that this person was his friend. He trusted him. He told me with his own mouth that he didn't know how to feel. He was disappointed. He couldn't believe what had happened. And I honestly believe he's still processing it all, because ever since, Tuesday, the story just kind of took off, and we haven't even had time to figure things out or have the tough conversations that we need to have, because everything happens so fast. But the love and support and that everyone has showed him during this time has made a huge difference. I will say that.
And Samarion, I'd like to ask you in your own words, if you're able to kind of walk us through what happened that night. You think that you're going to a friend's house for a sleepover, and then what?
And then these boys, they came over without my knowledge. And then one of them, who I thought was my friend, reassured me that it was all going to be okay, that we had no hard feelings. But I knew that something was going to go down, because the type of people that those boys were, they are not good people. And then, so we were playing video games, and then we go outside. That's when somebody's idea to have, to all get shot at. So, so they all started shooting at me. I didn't have a BB gun at this time. They all started shooting me. And then one shot me in my privates, and then they just pelted me all over my body, and then I just felt I was hurting. And then we go back home, and then I was tired, so I went to bed. And then I went to bed, and then throughout my entire sleeping, or slept, they were assaulting me by hitting me and slapping me. And then one of the boys, they woke me up, and then he told me that I wasn't breathing and that I needed to drink this water. And I have a hard time going to sleep in the first place. So I was very dazed and I didn't know what was going on. But they all urinated into a cup and then they made me drink it.
At any point, were you able to get a parent, or were you able to call home and say that you wanted to leave?
I was asleep. I did not know any of this even happened until multiple days after.
She said she got medical problem. You don't have to serve if you don't want to.
You can't even see how I'm looking at you, sir. I have sunglasses on. You can't even see how I'm looking at you. I have sunglasses on.
Yeah, did I guess?
You just said, don't look at you like that. How do you see how I'm looking at you?
Excuse me, can you just serve? If you don't want to serve her, let you go. If you want to serve her, if not, let you go.
Take her out.
Okay, ma'am, hello, ma'am. He's not going to serve her, so please leave.
Why? Because he's a bitch-ass nigger?
No,
Is that
excuse
why?
me. Hello,
That's what he is.
Hello. Now you need to go.
That's what he is.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Bitch-ass,
Hello,
N-word.
ma'am. You
I
need
just
to
said
go.
it. You heard it.
Let me call the cop because this lady been very disruptive now.
It doesn't affect me that you're not going to serve me because you're a bitch.
Are you just calling him a nigger? That's what you just said?
I can call him whatever I want. You got the double mask on your face, right?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Coronavirus.
What coronavirus?
You don't think
how many people died of the flu?
You don't think coronavirus is real?
How many people died of the flu?
How many people died from coronavirus? What?
Are you Antifa?
Am I Antifa?
You're Antifa?
What does Antifa mean?
Are you not MAGA?
What does Antifa mean?
It's the opposite of MAGA. Do you know what that means?
I'm not MAGA.
No, you
No.
don't? You're not MAGA? How many black guys have you fucked?
What?
How many black guys have you fucked? She doesn't fuck black guys because she's smart.
That doesn't have to do with anything that I said, honey.
Because if you're into Black Lives Matter, why don't you fuck black guys?
That doesn't have to.
Why don't you have some black babies and have them get taken by ACS?
What's that got to do with what's the actual fuck?
Why? Because I get black kids taken away from me just like black women do. Do you know what equality is with that? Or are you too busy dressing up like idiots? Spitting at people? I'm spitting at people? Are you serious? Did they call the cops on me if I was spitting at people? No, they didn't. They're lying, and I'm going to sue them for making up allegations. You're not. No, I am allowed to. Officers, I am allowed to shop here. I have a disability. I have a disability. And I am not going to be harassed in every single store I go to just because I need to get food for my children.
It's not because you're disability, all right? It's because...
No, these people are making false allegations. I did not spit at anybody. That's insane. If I spat at anybody, they could have called the cops and had me arrested. They didn't. Where is the police report? They don't even know my name. Do they even know my name? No, they don't. Officer, please uphold my rights and let me buy food here for my child. I am not running around this store trying to get kicked out when I could go to another store. Okay? I don't have time for this.
We are back now with that video of an incident at a bakery when a New York woman used a racial slur against a young man after she refused to wear a mask in the store. Kenneth Moten, who spoke with that employee, and he joins us now with more. Good morning, Kenneth.
Good morning, Robin. We've seen violent encounters over mask and pandemic fatigue, but this incident reached a whole other despicable level, and it was all caught on camera. It's the shocking moment a white woman said this to a black bakery worker in New York City.
Why? Because he's a bitch.
The video, recorded by a bystander, showing the woman denied service by the employee after refusing to wear a face mask.
Can't wear a mask, sir. Why can't you wear a mask?
Security at the scene attempting to de-escalate the situation, but things took a turn when the woman hurled a racial slur.
Ma'am, he's not going to serve it, so please leave.
Why? Because he's a bitch.
Oh my God.
That's what he is.
The woman doubling down on the racist insult next to children that appear to be with her.
Disgusting. And you have a baby who's mixed.
This morning, the man behind the counter, 30-year-old Victor Kamara, is speaking out.
I was kind of, sorry about the situation. I was kind of, appalled by it as well.
For a black person, we know that the N-word has a way of really, it strikes you like a lightning bolt.
Did it make you take a step back?
I was like, why would you call me that? You know what I mean? And especially having kids that are mixed, you know, why would you use those words?
Kamara says while he was trying to calm the situation, he appreciated those who stepped in. In a statement, the bakery is praising Kamara, saying we stand with all our employees and thank Victor for handling the situation of hate and bigotry with professionalism and grace. Adding anyone who uses racism and any insensitive language simply is not welcome in our stores. But incidents like these caught on camera all too frequently are an unfortunate reality for many. 22-year-old Maya Ponsetto is now facing a new lawsuit after attacking a black teenager at a New York City hotel back in December.
Show me this on my phone. Show me. No.
You don't have to explain nothing to her.
Take the case off. That's mine. Literally, get it back.
Are you kidding me? You feel like there's only one iPhone made in the world?
No. Okay, then show me the.
No,
show me
you get a life over there.
No,
what's on your background? You better go use find my iPhone. Go do that.
Find my iPhone is on.
No, you can't. No,
I'm the manager of the hotel.
I don't care.
He will
this
right
is my
now.
son. Hey, did you see me just come downstairs out of the fucking elevator?
I'm trying to help.
No, but you're not helping.
I
what
am.
you've been is disrespectful.
No, I'm trying to settle the situation.
My son has nothing to do with her.
No.
I'm trying to
figure out what's going on in the lobby. Then show me the proof. No, he's not leaving. Show me the proof.
Are you kidding me? You better get on.
I need you away.
Let's go, kid.
I need you away. I'm sorry.
Better get on. We have what you see two black people.
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
Better get on somewhere.
No, please get my phone back. I cannot not have my phone.
Listen, get your ass off.
I apologize. Can we move on?
I feel like her apology was, as genuine as when she shushed you.
You're 22. I get it. Enough.
It said a lot. I have an issue with the idea of entitlement versus character.
Well said.
It's all been tragically consistent. I'll just say that.
The parents of 14-year-old Keon Harold Jr., who was falsely accused of taking 22-year-old Mia Ponsetto's phone at a hotel in New York City, are speaking out following Mia's bizarre interview with CBS this morning.
Yeah, I apologize. Can we move on? Those were the exact words that she used with you. Does that sound like an apology? She knew she assaulted a 14-year-old boy, not a guy, not a man.
Ponsetto falsely accused the 14-year-old boy, Keon Harold Jr., of stealing her phone, ultimately tackling him in an attempt to get the phone back. Let me note, her missing phone was later found at the hotel. Harold captured the alleged assault in a 1-minute video posted to his Instagram, and the whole thing was also documented on the hotel's surveillance camera.
You see two black people?
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
The clip went viral. Ponsetto was dubbed the Soho Karen online, and last week she sat down with Gayle King and her attorney for a virtual interview, just hours before she was arrested in California by the New York City Police Department.
Basically, I'm a 22-year-old girl. Racism is, how is one girl accusing a guy about a phone a crime?
You're 22 years old, but you are old enough to know better. So I will say you're 22. I get it.
Enough. The hotel did have my phone. The hotel did end up having my phone. It didn't seem as if my accusations really bothered the son and the father, because they were just enjoying a nice meal right after this whole encounter. But all I'm saying,
I don't know if you,
is I want this to be over, and I'm sorry.
Whether they were
so I would love to
your,
make this short and sweet, Gayle.
Yeah, she gave Gayle sass over.
You're 22. I get it.
Enough.
And over again.
When you looked at that video, what did you think? What did you think, Mia, when you looked at the video?
You already asked me that in the beginning of the interview. I'm not going over it again. I would like to have a real interview with real questions and real heart and real sincere apologies. Let 2021 be the moment of healing. Seriously.
Last week, when ET asked her attorney Sharon H. Gata about the sit-down, Gata explained, quote, "I started to question her well-being, and I am genuinely concerned for her mental health at this point. I told her to stop. I was adamant. I was stern, and she was making me feel uncomfortable and everyone else feel uncomfortable, and it was enough."
The total amount is $1,200, and that is certainly not what we agreed to. He told me, officer, tell me your name.
Laverne.
Officer Laverne, this is what happened. I called them up. I told them what I had. I've done this several times. I have moved this furniture multiple times. So I called him. I asked him how much. I told him what I had. He said it's a 2-man crew and that it would take about 3 hours. He actually had to call one of his friends to come because it was taking so long. And it's because, I'm telling you, they didn't come and look at the furniture.
Okay, that's,
he asked me.
But that's not, that's...
Yes, actually, that is what usually happens, but that didn't happen in this
That may
case.
not happen with this company.
Yes, but you can't do that and then expect me to pay all of this. I wasn't
If
expecting
it takes
that.
longer than expected, yeah.
But that shouldn't have happened because they should have had more people.
Well, okay. Bottom line is if you don't pay them for the services tonight, you will be arrested.
You're saying you're arresting
Yes.
me for, but that's not what we agreed to.
You can explain it to the judge.
Well,
The charges are $110 an hour for 11 hours.
For 11 hours?
That's why they're getting that's where they're getting the plus $75.
Okay, so tell them to write that down on here and give me a statement.
I don't have anything that proves to me that my stuff is insured, like what's going to happen when it's damaged. Alex, I'm really upset that here's what we have come to. We've come to a policeman threatening to arrest me because...
That's not a threat.
No. Yeah, well, a policeman saying that he's going to arrest me, a misdemeanor, because I am saying that he's saying that my property is damaged.
Okay.
So that's a separate issue.
That is a separate issue.
But
The
if it-
issue at hand right now,
Why are you yelling?
because you're not listening.
No, I am listening.
No, you're not.
No, I am
No.
listening.
Okay, you're under arrest.
Why am I under
You're under arrest because you're not paying them. So you're under arrest.
I will pay them. I will pay them.
Are you going to pay them?
Yes.
Then
You
get
know
it done.
what?
Pay them.
This is just really...
Get them paid
I
now.
cannot even believe this.
Get them paid.
Okay, that's fine. You know what? I need all of this.
Take a card on your phone and have a signature on that card.
All right. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna hang up and you take the payment, and then I'll also get the case number because I want to get a police report whenever it's finished. All right.
The school teacher's racist outburst against a student and parent. Caught on a Zoom call, the teacher apparently thought she had hung up. Now there's a recording and a lawsuit. ABC's Zareen Shah joins us from Los Angeles with more. Zareen, good morning.
Good morning. With the family's lawyer says, like so many single moms, this mother was just trying to make ends meet. She had to cut off Wi-Fi and cable right before the pandemic, and then they struggled to get a school-issued hotspot to work. So she talked to the teacher about her son catching up and then accidentally catches the teacher going off on a racist outburst. This morning, a Southern California community outraged after a 6th grade teacher's racist outburst.
I mean, these parents, that's what kind of piece of they're black. He's black.
A Palmdale teacher finishing Zooming with a parent back in January when it appears the teacher did not end the call and sounded off about the mom.
Your son has learned to lie to everybody and make excuses because you taught him to make excuses that nothing is his fault. This is what black people do. This is what black people do.
While the mom recorded, the family's lawyer saying the son was listening.
This young man is seen visibly crying and upset when this teacher made the comment about how kids like him are raised to lie and to make up excuses. He's visibly seen crying on screen and running out the door.
The teacher resigning. The lawyer says the meeting was about getting the son up to speed in his science class.
He was an honors student before the pandemic, and once the transition to online happened, he had a lot of trouble accessing the Zoom platform because of internet issues.
This is not the first racist school Zoom outburst. Georgetown law professor Sandra Sellers recently firing off derogatory remarks about black students to another professor.
Get some really good ones, but there are also usually some that are just plain at the bottom. It drives me crazy.
Georgetown firing Sellers and promising change. As for Palmdale School District, they say they do not tolerate racial discrimination, but the family filing a claim against the district.
Every time from now on that this child and this mother have an issue at school, whether it's this school or any other school, they will think twice about going to anyone and asking for help.
The school says they've reached out to the family to offer counseling, but the lawyer says the family has lost faith in the staff and they fear blowback.
Racial slurs and offensive language spray painted on a woman's driveway.
It started last Wednesday.
Stacey Livingston claims that vandalism is just part of the threats and damage she's been experiencing at her home in Frisco. She says her telephone and cable lines were cut too.
He came to my door, kicking my door, and just talking really crazy.
Livingston and other witnesses say it's a neighbor on her street who's allegedly trespassing on her property and making the single mom the target of racist tirades and threats.
He's been walking up and down the street calling me.
And this video from another neighbor's home allegedly catching that man in action a few days ago. You can see the unidentified guy in the white shirt and dark pants approaching Livingston's home singing. At one point, he throws food on the woman's property. And while walking away, he's heard yelling N-words, gotta eat too. Then he calls the woman his slave.
I just feel unsafe and I don't feel protected.
Livingston says she's called Denton County Sheriff's Office to her home 4 times since Wednesday and spent a few days in a hotel. Neighbors have been calling police too.
She fears for her life, and she has valid reason to.
Blair Melmazi is Livingston's attorney. A spokesman from Denton County Sheriff's Office confirms the neighbor's been issued a criminal trespass warning. But Elmazi questions why more isn't being done.
An arrest and a transparent investigation needs to take place immediately. And we need to begin seeing results today.
Denton County Sheriff's Office says this remains an ongoing investigation. For now, supportive neighbors have helped pressure wash the driveway. Livingston and her lawyers say the NAACP is also getting involved. And some community organizers tell me they are prepared to help provide security for the neighbors should this behavior continue.
I'm right here. Are you going to get off the aircraft or are you going to sit there and scream? I'm just asking. Because it's going to be your turn. I got to pee. I got to get off of here.
Ma'am, I'm trying to.
I'm watching you attack her.
You go out of here.
Excuse me, I work here, ma'am.
Well,
All right?
I need
Get
to
off the
see.
aircraft, please.
Fuck my mama, nigga. Fuck my mama. Fuck your mama, nigga. Fuck your mama. You're
gonna pop him.
I live on 400 Ice Avenue, 2 blocks away. And you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I'm gonna walk to you. I'm gonna walk right to my house for you, bro. Oh God, I'm not trying to disrespect you, bro. I'm not. I'm gonna say nigga all day, every day. Are you kidding me? Where you from, nigga? Where you from? Where you from? Where the fuck you from? Here, nigga. You from here? Get the fuck out of here. You a clown, nigga. Oh God, you a clown, nigga. You from here? You a clown. What, you gonna smack me with that? Smack me with it. Smack me! Smack me, nigga. Come on, yeah. Drop it.
Ooh. Yeah, you got yours, buddy.
Call me another fucking nigga. I don't give a fuck. Hey, man, you learned his lesson, man. Ain't no reason to be. Call me another nigga. Ain't no reason to find him out. Call me another fucking nigga. Okay. You good now? You're good. I asked you not to call me a nigga.
I don't blame you, dude.
You're good.
Hey, I can do what I want.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, of course, we cannot ignore our own mental health issues. And in our community, we have a lot of mental health issues, and it's because of the trauma that we have been through. At the end of the day, we have to realize that we are all we got. We have to start building our own institutions to come help with whatever issues that we have, because we cannot call somebody who has shown us for hundreds of years that they do not care about us and will shed our blood at the drop of a dime. These people are already scared of us. So when we're dealing with mental issues, of course they're going to be terrified. But we don't have any other choice but to build these things for ourselves. Because when we have loved ones in our family who have mental issues and they have mental breakdowns and we need some help, we cannot call an enemy that is trained to harm us. But we don't have anybody to call. But we gotta understand that calling the quote-unquote authorities in more cases than not is nothing but a death sentence. And we gotta stop acting surprised about it. In Texas, a brother Patrick Warren Sr., who was mentally ill, ended up getting shot and killed by Officer Reynaldo Contreras of the Killeen police. Now let's go back and see what happened to this brother.
Is the door open? Hello. Oh, man. Okay. No. I'm going to walk back out. I don't work like this. Let me see your hands. Get down on the ground. Hey, do not shoot him. Hey, do not shoot him. Do not shoot him. Hey, Dad, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Please. No, I told you don't use a gun. 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 I told you don't use a gun.
As we update you on the tragic story of a 52-year-old man from Texas fatally shot by police. Patrick Warren's family is speaking out for the first time about their call for help that turned deadly. And now they want the officer to be fired and charged.
A Ring doorbell camera captures the chaos and soon a family's heartache when a Killeen, Texas police officer called to the home, first used his stun device and then shot 52-year-old Patrick Warren Sr., who family members said was in a mental crisis.
My father, he was outside and he was praising to the sky. He was saying different things like hallelujah, but he was super loud. We couldn't get him inside and we're like, okay, something's going on. We need to alert somebody.
Family members tell ABC News after they called the city's mental health hotline, a lone police officer, now identified as Reynaldo Contreras, arrived at the scene.
We had no idea they were sending out a police officer.
In the video, you can see Contreras walk into the house. Moments later, he comes back out. Then Warren comes out of his home, walks towards the officer, waving his arms in the air. He appears unarmed. You can hear family members urging police not to shoot. Family and friends come into view as Warren and the officer are moving away from the house. This shaky cell phone video captures what happens next. The sounds of the stun device followed by gunshots.
Hey, Dad, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Please. No, I told you don't use a gun.
The officer shot Warren 3 times as his mother, wife, and sons watched from the porch.
This is one of the worst police officer-involved shootings that I've ever seen.
The family's attorney says the situation last Sunday should not have ended this way.
He showed up alone. He showed up untrained. He showed up hostile. All those things made for a deadly sort of cocktail, and this result could have completely been avoided.
The department says Officer Contreras, a 5-year veteran, has been placed on administrative leave pending the results of the investigation.
I try to think of things to just keep busy so I don't focus on that. It's hard to grieve when there's still a officer walking the streets that killed my father.
And local and state law enforcement officials in Texas tell ABC News the investigation is ongoing. According to the family's attorney, they are asking for that body camera footage to be released from the shooting. We are told the footage will not be released as evidence until it's been turned over to the Bell County DA and the prosecutor's office.
Now, this brother Patrick Warren Sr. was having a mental health crisis. This brother was outside praising God, saying religious stuff, but he was talking real loud. Now, the day before this happened, his family called a mental health specialist who came and did what he was supposed to do. He calmed his brother down, took him to wherever he had to go, and brought him back home safely that night. So the family figured they just called the same guy again to get him to do the same thing. But this time they claim, I guess, the only mental health specialist in the area was busy doing something else and was unavailable. Now, even if you're forced to call some kind of authorities because your loved one is having a mental health breakdown, you have to be careful about what you say. Because believe me, they're going to use your words against you, just like they did his wife. Because when the family called, they did say he was being aggressive, but that's not what they meant. And they also said, no guns, don't kill him, but they didn't listen to that part. But when this cop, Reynaldo Contreras, got there, the family tried to send him away because they wanted the mental health specialist to come. They made it clear they weren't calling for the police. And clearly this cop didn't know what he was doing. He went in there for like 30 seconds saying, I don't work like this, turned around and walked out. And all he did was keep escalating the situation more and more. And just within a minute or two of him getting there, it got to the point where this brother started walking out the house. And he had his hands in the air in plain sight. And he kept saying, take it in faith, take it in faith. So I guess this cop terrified of this brother because they usually have this deep sense of fear. Because if you know anything, it comes from fear, guilt, all of that stuff. That's why they have to convince themselves they have this quote unquote superior mindset and try to be in control all the time because it comes from an inferior place. And if you that scared, it's time to turn in your gun and badge. But this cop started tasing this brother. And of course, this brother was having mental issues and the taser wasn't working on him. So instead of this cop thinking, let me wait for backup to come or even ask his family to help me, he felt his only option was to pull out his gun and shoot this brother 3 times.
Today, new video was released in the Patrick Warren case. It was taken the day before Warren was shot and killed by a Killeen police officer. In it, a deputy trained to handle mental health episodes responds to the house after Warren's family called for help. And as 6 News reporter Andrew Moore shows us, there is a stark difference in the way 2 similar calls on 2 different days were handled.
Warren's family says a trained Bell County deputy came out the day before Warren was shot, was able to de-escalate the situation, and then get Warren some help. In these few brief seconds of Ring doorbell footage, you'll be able to see the differences between that trained deputy and the officer who would later shoot Warren. The Lee Merritt law firm provided this Ring doorbell video to 6 News. As you can see in the video, the trained deputy is relaxed, not in full uniform, and is not visibly carrying a gun. But he also put in the time. If you look at the time stamps, he made first contact with the family around 10:40, and he didn't leave with Warren until 11:53, more than an hour later. When Officer Contreras responded the next day, he was pacing outside the house, and he walked into the house and right back out in the same video clip, less than 30 seconds. Killeen PD hasn't responded to any of our questions about the incident or about their resources, and it's not clear if Contreras had any idea what situation he was walking into. Merritt law firm attorney Blair Elmazi says more departments need trained professionals that can handle these calls, and people are dying as a result.
It really is a crisis in America. Police officers shooting people experiencing mental health crisis. Every police department looking to address that issue should have an office specifically dedicated to training and dispatching officers capable of handling those calls.
Elmazi told us Merritt's law firm is currently handling 12 similar cases. The family of Warren told us they had asked for that same deputy to come back out on Sunday, but they could not get him on the phone.
Officer Contreras was dealing with the incident right in front of him. He was not some rude, hostile officer.
Strong words tonight from Killeen's police chief, Charles Kimball, as he defends the officer involved in that deadly shooting of Patrick Warren. Today, Killeen's police chief, Charles Kimball, showed reporters the full body camera video of what happened that Sunday afternoon. It gives us a lot more information than we had just 12 hours ago. 6 News reporter Andrew Moore is in Killeen to walk us through this new video.
Ms. Bobby Warren called 911 on January 10th. But she also told the call taker that her husband was aggressive, He was almost physical.
While the Warren family asked for a mental health deputy the day Patrick Warren was shot, they also indicated the family could be in danger. And Chief Charles Kimball says that's why Officer Reynaldo Contreras tried to make contact with the family as soon as possible. But when he opened the door,
Come on, okay, come on in. No, I'm gonna walk back out.
he couldn't communicate with Warren, and then Warren made a barking sound. Contreras then walked out of the house to de-escalate the situation. Listen to the sounds Warren was making inside. Warren appeared at the door 90 seconds later. He walked halfway across the yard towards the officer before being tased.
You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased!
Then came something even more unexpected. Warren jumps to his feet immediately and runs at the officer. Contreras retreats past the edge of the yard, still trying to communicate.
Stay back! I'm gonna shoot you! I'm gonna shoot you!
Finally, he opens fire. Chief Kimball said today officers only have 40 to maybe 80 hours of mental health training and limited tools to handle a fully manic individual.
There are things that we are not capable to deal with. Our tools are very limited in dealing with persons that have mental health issues.
But he also said the officer was there to check on the family and did the best he could in that situation.
And I can't imagine putting myself in Officer Contreras' shoes, because I believe the video show that he waited until the last possible second to use force.
The chilling moments after the shots were fired show an officer wishing things had gone differently.
No choice, man. Damn it.
And Contreras even walked back to Warren to pray in his final moments.
Hey, sir, I want to pray for you, okay? All right? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Amen.
Now, after this cop shot this brother, you can see he was completely unprepared. He was scared out of his mind. And he had no business there or doing what he did. And then this cop, Reynaldo Contreras, had the nerve to sit there and try to pray for this brother after he shot him. And the paramedics let him stay right there for an extra second just so he can do that crazy stuff. And before he shot him, after he shot him, the whole time, you can hear this brother's son, his whole family saying, don't use a gun, don't use a gun. But he still felt like that was his only option. And of course, they had to roll out the token Negro, the police chief, Charles Kimball, to go out there and put his cape on and start caping for this cop, talking about this brother was almost violent.
And the family's attorney says they are unhappy with how this investigation has progressed so far. 6 News reporter Jasmine Caldwell further explains what led up to Sunday's shooting, including new information released by Warren's family this afternoon.
Days after 52-year-old Patrick Warren was shot and killed by Killeen police officer Reynaldo Contreras. His family, along with civil rights attorney Lee Merritt, met with Bell County District Attorney Henry Garza, but Merritt says not without a hiccup.
The district attorney's office for this county is responsible for investigating officer-involved shootings, all officer-involved shootings from day one. Mr. Garza has indicated because of weather concerns, they were not there on the day of the shooting.
He says Garza said it's too soon to speak with the family because there is evidence his office was not able to review.
There's no reason that a mental health call like this should result in a fatality. Mr. Warren was not aggressive. Mr. Warren was not armed. He was in his home. He was on his lawn. He was within his rights to reject the services of law enforcement after they arrived. Their responsibility was simply to leave or send the appropriate personnel to deal with this particular crisis. They failed this family in every way, and it's left them shattered.
Merritt said Warren's family first called for a mental resource officer on Saturday because he was having what Merritt called a manic episode. KPD sent a mental health officer, and Warren went to the hospital voluntarily. The next day, Warren was home again, and Merritt said he had another manic episode. The family called KPD again, but this time Officer Contreras showed up. Contreras went inside the Warren home, but was asked to leave because the family wanted a mental health officer. Video from a doorbell camera shows Contreras leave, but it then cuts to Warren walking at Contreras while waving his arms. Then, out of view of the camera, Contreras tases Warren, and when that doesn't work, he shoots him.
This was an officer who was poorly equipped to handle a fairly mundane situation and quickly resorted to violence in a way that was unnecessary.
The family says they plan to file a civil suit against the Killeen Police Department and are calling for Contreras to be fired immediately.
Officer Contreras is currently on administrative leave. Police Chief Charles Kimball says there are many more facts in this case that are not available to the public. He's asking for patience as the investigation proceeds. I wish I never called the police. Those are the words of Patrick Warren Jr., the son of the man shot and killed by a Killeen police officer on Sunday. 6 News reporter Jasmine Caldwell spoke to him today as he described what it's been like losing his father.
For Patrick Warren Jr., watching the video of his dad's final moments alive is heartbreaking.
I broke down watching it like this can't be happening.
Warren says he had to call the police on his father twice because his dad would walk throughout the neighborhood shouting religious phrases, something he hadn't done before. He said when the family called police, they hoped a mental health officer would show up, but instead Killeen Police sent Officer Reynaldo Contreras, and from there the mental health call for Patrick Warren Sr. turned into tragedy.
It's been hard, but I'm staying focused because I feel like my father has like a battery in my back. It's almost like a fire underneath me right now. It's like until the officer is actually arrested, I can't stop. I can't relax. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't grieve until I know that justice is actually happening.
Warren says his family moved from Bryan to Killeen 2 years ago. He said in a time of need, his dad was always the go-to guy.
And when I say that, it's, hey, something's going on with my car. Let me ask Dad. Hey, how do you do this? Let me ask Dad. Hey, can you mow my lawn? You ask him. My dad was someone that was great with his hands.
Civil rights attorneys are calling for a thorough investigation and for Contreras to be fired. Meanwhile, Warren wishes things in his life could be different.
I wish I took more pictures. I wish I would have made more time to just sit there and really pray. I wish I wouldn't have called the police. I wish I wouldn't have called a mental health officer. I wish things could just be different.
Now, of course, they're already going to make excuses for this cop. And the DA won't even talk to this brother's family. And you know, all they're going to do is sweep it under the rug until everybody forget about it. And then they'll put this cop right back out there patrolling the same streets. But for now, they'll just give him his paid vacation that you usually get when you kill a black person. But again, this is just one more reason we have to start dealing with our own issues. Why we have to build our own institutions. We can't keep going to sociopaths and psychopaths and people who are just generally scared of us, expecting them to help us. Because this same thing keeps happening over and over. We might not want it to happen that way, and we might just be trying to get our loved ones some help. But time and time again, it has showed us that too often it ends up as a death sentence for our loved one. And we wish that we never called the police. And sometimes, yes, you do need help. But it's important for each one of us to do our part so that we can have help in situations like this instead of going through the same thing over and over again, seeing our blood being shed and nothing happens. And until we realize that we are all we got, and I'm going to keep saying that because we are all we got. And until we learn that and understand that and really feel that, then this same thing is going to keep happening.
Now, let me say something right quick. I think back on the African-American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here, and God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
It seems to me like they furnished them a house to live in. They furnished them clothes to put on their back. They furnished them food to put on their table, and all they had to do was fucking work.
Dan Bongino is. He's on Fox News all the time. He said, you know, what they're saying now is, well, you didn't have to shoot him. It's just a taser. Then how come when you tase a nigger, it's like you done killed him 27 times? The guy's running, he's got the taser in his hand, and you see him, and he turns, and you see him fire the taser at the officer.
Okay, what would he have done if it had hit the officer? Go over there and get his gun and kill him? Yeah. Yes. Or what if one of them projectiles would have struck him in the eye? Yeah. The act of him firing that taser at an officer is an aggravated assault because he has not been trained in the proper use. An officer, if I go to tase somebody, I know to shoot low. I know what to do. He doesn't know.
That's right.
And that mayor up there, she's already fired the officer. And without a hearing. And she's pushing real hard. They say she's now the front runner to be Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate.
You kidding?
If I had a fucking mayor, I'd rather the mayor than Stacey Abrams.
Can I have an apology from you, sir, for telling me to get back on the boat?
Yeah, if you don't
to go back to Africa? You think that's okay?
Yeah, I do.
So are you going
This
to
is
tell me to
America.
go back to the
We
boat?
didn't bring you here. Your people. Yeah, I don't care if she records me.
If you have
Your
the
people
audacity to
sold
I just
you.
want to know if you're going to apologize for telling me to go back to Africa. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Love it or leave it.
It's okay.
You don't like it here, go back to Africa.
Okay. Say it again. Barred us from traveling.
You don't like it here, go back to Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, over here.
Thank you.
They should be investigating him for the criminal charges he should be facing.
Right now, calls for justice after cell phone video shows an Osceola County school resource deputy slamming a student to the ground. The family of the girl is speaking out tonight, saying that they're depressed and traumatized by what happened this week at Liberty High School in Osceola County. The case has grabbed national attention and brought a nationally recognized attorney to Central Florida today to represent the family. Good evening to you. I'm Eric Von Aken. Thanks for joining us tonight for News 6 at 7. In a press conference in just the past few hours, Taylor Brace's family demanded that the Osceola County deputy be fired. News 6's Jerry Askin was at that press conference this afternoon. He's now live at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. Jerry.
Eric, hey, yeah, more calls for justice for 16-year-old Taylor Bracey. I was at that press conference that wrapped up here at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office a short while ago. Meantime, we know civil rights attorney Ben Crump is now representing that girl's family, and her parents told me they want justice. What's been the hardest part of all this for you, man?
Seeing the video, for one, of my daughter, and then just living with her, trying to comfort her through this.
16-year-old Taylor Bracey's mom still can't believe the actions by this Osceola County Schools resource officer. That's her daughter being slammed to the ground here in this viral video. She says the deputy's actions are inexcusable as her daughter continues to recover.
My daughter is having headaches, blurry vision. You know, she's having trouble remembering things, having a hard time sleeping.
Taylor life matters. Taylor life matters.
Saturday, more calls for justice for Taylor Bracey.
I ain't that much of a talker, but I just want to see justice for my daughter.
And now we know civil rights attorney Ben Crump is representing Taylor and her family.
Just like you can't convince me Taylor Bracey did anything to justify this brutality.
Crump says she was knocked unconscious after being slammed to the ground. The sheriff said Deputy Ethan Fournier is now on paid leave as the FDLE investigates. Sheriff said the deputy was trying to stop a disruption at a school function and the girl was not complying with the deputy's demands. Though Bracey's family is calling for the deputy's termination and they want a community-wide task force to lead the investigation, not the FDLE.
It's depressing. She's depressed. I'm depressed. We all are traumatized about what happened.
What? Second, bro, you do this in public? Can't tell me walk outside.
What did he do? We just
in front of my family?
But he did nothing. Y'all got the wrong person. We don't even have a black truck.
A black truck, bro?
We don't have a black truck. We just came to the mall. What did he say?
But you know, I record this. I'm taking this report, bro.
Okay, but don't snap. But what did he do?
You gonna let me talk to you? You lucky you got these cuffs on me.
Babe, don't snap.
Take me to the front, yo.
But what did he do?
Take me to the front now.
Can you tell us? We just came with our family. We don't even have a black truck.
Yo, get off me.
Jamar, don't snap. Wait a second. Come here. Come report this. Report. Follow them. Follow them. What did he do? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Get this blade straight to me, nigga.
Jamar, what are you doing? Y'all fucking racist as fuck. We ain't here with our family.
Are you serious right now, dog?
What? No, y'all, this is so fucking embarrassing. We are with our family. I got my baby here, newborn. Why do y'all have him? But what did he do? He didn't do anything.
I know.
Mom got my ass. We with our fucking kids. You don't do that. That is so, you know what's going on in the fucking world today. We with our fucking kids.
I'm going to jail.
We don't do nothing. We stay in the house. He didn't do nothing. Do you know how embarrassing that is? You can't fucking.
He's still on me?
Might be the wrong one. It is the wrong person. We told you. Asked him about a black truck, and we said y'all didn't even give him. Y'all didn't give him a chance to explain. You said, do you have a black truck? He doesn't. We don't even drive a black truck.
That nigga's arrest me while I'm eating?
We're our fucking kids.
What am I?
Okay, relax.
No! You ask questions first,
but y'all fucked up.
You don't do that. We're with our kids, but you ask questions first. You didn't even give him a chance to ask a fucking question.
No!
You can't expect him not to be upset. You can't expect him to be with our fucking kids in the mall. That is so embarrassing.
Are you serious?
But you ask questions, I get it if you thought he fit the profile of somebody else. But ask him a question.
What's his name?
You didn't even ask the question.
Stop and come. You're going to see me again.
But you ask, you can't, but you don't do this. We're with our kids. You think he'll forget this? You think my son will forget this?
And I would like to I know you would.
Please, Jamar, let him take them off. Just
man came to arrest me while I'm eating, no words?
And I would like to explain.
No, ain't no explaining.
Okay. You're free to go, and I would like
to
explain
just get these fucking cuffs off me and don't talk to me, motherfucker.
Yes, sir.
Come on, let's
go.
Your name?
What's your name?
Let's go. We're leaving.
All right, I'm going to see your ass again, bitch.
It's all right. Just
what's wrong with you, man? Arrest me while I'm eating, no questions. Don't move. Don't move.
Explain to you what's going on.
Wait, I don't give a fuck what's going on.
I want to know.
Explain it before you put the cuffs on me.
Take him. Go ahead. Y'all go. Y'all go. Explain to me what happened. I want to know.
We got a description of someone that was using stolen credit cards, okay?
Stolen?
That person
I got it. Let me listen.
is a black male with dreads and is wearing all black
and was with a boy that was wearing red. Okay? I could show you the case. He's wearing all black.
So this is them right over here.
Come on, yo. Black man with dreads.
Another black male with red dreads.
Boy with red.
But the thing is, y'all.
I sincerely apologize. It was a
I mean, y'all just that was so embarrassing.
If he was using
And then he
man,
you put me in handcuffs while I'm taking a bite from my
stolen
son?
vehicle, then I wouldn't have talked to him about it. I would have just taken him into custody and detained him, okay?
Nah, bro.
I understand
You
it's
did that shit all
embarrassing.
Do you have a card?
I sincerely apologize. I
You
sincerely
did that shit all wrong. That wasn't
It's
professional.
fine. It's
That wasn't
alright.
nothing. That was
Do you have a card?
stereotyping, and that's how y'all do black
It was
motherfuckers,
definitely
dog.
stereotyping because things could have been
That's
handled
what
in
we
a different
fighting
way.
for now.
It
That's what
definitely
y'all do
is.
to us. That's why we fighting for this shit now.
I understand.
Can I have a card
This
from
how we
somebody?
get treated in 2020. In 2020.
You can have a name.
That's how I get treated,
That's
bro.
fine.
You have the right to be upset, sir.
That's why we fighting. That's why they fucking y'all up.
You have the
It's
right
all right,
to be upset.
babe. It's all right.
That's why, bitch.
It's all right. It's fine. We leaving. I'll take the name and the number.
2020, nigga.
That's
Nigga,
crazy.
fucking 70s.
I'm somebody I can contact outside of this environment right now.
So she can have my name, Sergeant. Okay.
What we march for? What we say Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, that's what we say. Look how y'all treat us. In front of people. Like I'm the wrong motherfucker.
It's fine, baby.
I own businesses.
It's all right.
Just give her the
Black Lives Matter, y'all see why we fight. Fuck, niggas. Come on, man.
Father's fight over a classroom lesson, he says, should have never been assigned. The lesson is focused on the Black Lives Matter movement, something he says doesn't align with his family's beliefs. CBS 13's Marissa Perlman is live outside the school in Citrus Heights on this with this curriculum controversy, Marissa.
Yeah, Garen Bratcher isn't happy. His 14-year-old daughter, Ella, in her freshman year here at San Juan High School, is getting lessons about the Black Lives Matter movement. And Ella, too, spoke with us today. She's worried about how her beliefs may impact her grade.
It just really made me uncomfortable in class.
14-year-old Ella Bratcher doesn't want to learn about the Black Lives Matter movement in her ethnic studies class, and her dad agrees.
It's going to create that divide in the classroom, and that becomes dangerous to a student.
The class is being taken online, but Garen emailed her teacher asking for an alternate lesson plan, calling BLM a radical group.
The ethics behind them is not something that you should be teaching a 14-year-old child. It sounded more like a recruitment seminar than it did an educational experience.
His request was denied. The class isn't required for Ella to graduate, but every freshman at San Juan High School is automatically enrolled in ethnic studies. In an email the family shared with CBS 13, Ella's teacher says the framework for the class comes from the Department of Education, and the teacher would only modify a lesson plan for a student with an individualized education plan in special education. Tanya Faison, founder of Sacramento's Black Lives Matter movement, says it's important for all young people to learn about Black history, and that includes BLM.
It's about time that our schools are teaching our kids the truth, somewhat of the truth about history in our country.
They just maced it. Yeah, protect yourself. Look at Harvey, period. Say that again, brother. Oh, oh.
Now to the concerns of another community that too often feels unprotected and the group that's stepping up to do something about it. They're known as the NFAC, an unarmed all-black militia. You might have seen an armed black militia that you might have seen at protests in Georgia, Kentucky, and D.C. Joining us now from Atlanta with more on this, NBC News correspondent Morgan Radford. Morgan, tell us about this group.
Mika, good morning. The bottom line is this group says that the U.S. government, as well as law enforcement, simply does not do enough to protect Black Americans in this country, which is why they say they're taking matters into their own hands. And interestingly, Mika, this is a group that is growing. They say they now boast recruits in nearly every single state. So we decided to go and embed with them and see exactly what they're doing and why. Take a listen. The sounds of war. Right here at home. This is the NFAC, an all-Black militia with a mission to defend the Black community by any means necessary.
So this is training for one of the new chapters.
Yes. Appearing by the hundreds at protests from Stone Mountain, Georgia to Louisville, Kentucky, demanding justice for police killings and countering what they believe is the threat of right-wing militias. It's a movement started in 2017 by this man, former musician and Army veteran John Grandmaster J. Johnson.
Is the movement growing?
By leaps and bounds.
We met with him outside of Cincinnati, where he says another new chapter is now in the works.
The NFAC stands for the Not Effing Around Coalition.
What's behind the name?
The NFAC was born out of the last 4 years under the Trump administration. The deterioration of racial relations in this country. It means that you're preparing yourselves to defend yourselves.
While the group's style echoes the Black Panther Party of the 1960s, their goals are distinct, focusing on defense with the ultimate goal of a Black ethno-state.
What makes us so different is that our goal is our own government, our own country, a place where we can determine our own future.
Is violence an option to reach your goals?
The United States was built on violence being an option. Violence should be the last option.
Extremism experts say the group is distinct from far-right militias.
They have not risen to the level of concern of, say, the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers. They have not engaged in violence. In fact, in most of their demonstrations, they have, in fact, coordinated their activities with police.
When you talk about January 6th, and we saw those rioters storm the Capitol, what do you say to critics who say you're no different from them? They're extremists, you're extremists.
Show me where we have done those things. They've killed people. They've disrespected the government to the point where they have invaded its sacred halls. Show me where we've done those things, because we have done none of them.
We were allowed rare access to one of their training sites at a secret location in rural Georgia.
We are now driving to the NFAC training facility.
We spoke to one member who chose to go by the code name Shy to protect her anonymity.
This one is the handgun.
Correct, yes.
And then what do you guys do next?
We are going to the area where we practice our primary weapons firing.
Why did you decide to join this movement?
It's for the cause. Black people, we need to learn how to defend it. This is definitely one way to do it.
Do you all, have normal jobs? You work in all different sectors? And
Absolutely. We're business owners, we're doctors, lawyers, we're your everyday person, anywhere from Walmart to the corporate sector.
What are you all training for?
We're training for self-defense.
A response to show they won't be scared or unprotected any longer.
First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right, if you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well then, show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well then, stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man, you're a worm, you're afraid of us, you're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground, that we will match you and we will override you. And if that's what you're afraid of us, then tell us that that's what you're afraid of. But don't keep hiding it from us and holding this up to us, and every time we ask you for something, you give us a little bit of something, and it's all tokenism. We don't want tokenism. And there are most black men in this world that don't want charity. And yet still every time we ask you for something, you give us a little piece, a little piece. You're playing games with us. We're not children. We're big men. I've seen my father have to put up with all kinds of stuff. He was a big man. He raised a family. He went down south, and he had to go around to the back door with his wife. We're not asking for anything. We're not asking for any favors. All we want is what's ours. Now, there are many black veterans who are coming back, and they're mad. They're angry. Do you think that they're going to sit down through this? Our fathers didn't have the knowledge that we have. They sat through it. But there are other black youth that are not going to sit through it. We know about Che. We know about Fanon. We've read the books of our revolution. We've listened to Mao and his quotations. We know where we stand. We're not going to sit for it. We're asking, and if we ask and we don't get, we're prepared to stand up and take it. If I ask a man, I tell a man I am hungry. I tell him I am cold. And I ask him to do something about my condition. And this man holds a loaf of bread right in front of me so I can see it, and I keep asking him, I'm begging him to please give me a slice of the loaf of bread. I am hungry. Then it is known by every psychologist that the next step in the progression is I am going to knock him upside the head and take the bread from him. I'm not going to starve to death. All we're asking, no one wants to see blood. No one likes the smell of blood. No one wants war. Anyone who's been in war doesn't want war. Everyone knows what it is to see the inside of a man's gut hanging out and see your friends die, see relatives die. No one wants to regress back to the state of mind where you have to think it's all for the cause, therefore my mother has to die, my wife has to die, my brothers and sisters have to die. No one wants that. But you're pushing us to it. You're leaving us no choice. We're asking, we're begging. The students up at Columbia, they ask. The brothers down south ask. The brothers in Latin America, the brothers in Africa, they're all asking. All they're doing is asking. Our fathers asked. Our grandfathers asked. The presidents of our universities, our colleges had to go to your back doors to beg that their children be given just enough money so that they could be taught something to live off. And yet still, they asked and asked and asked, and you refused to give them anything. Now, we're just about out of patience. We're not going to ask anymore. The news media says that it's only the young that are militant, only the young that want this and want that. Okay, but we're 40% of the black population now. Or we were a year ago, and still yet we're climbing. Before long, we'll be 50%, 55%, and then we'll have the command. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take sitting in rotten parks and in places that just aren't fit for living. We're not going to take it. There's a limit to a man's patience, and everyone knows that God, Christ, heaven, everyone knows that what we're asking is not $1 million. All we're asking for is humanity. We're asking to be allowed to live like human beings. And God, you tell us that this is too much to ask. You're sick. You're definitely sick. How can you tell me that it's too much to ask to be a human being?
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RIP to the young brother Casey Goodson Jr. and to the brother Patrick Warren Sr. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's been long enough. We have to recognize what we're dealing with. We have to recognize we cannot reason with them. We have to start responding more urgently than they do to keep us in this position, for us to get out of this position. We have to realize that we are all we got. We have to solve our own issues within our own community, because nobody else is going to solve them, because nobody else cares about us. And we have to start caring about ourselves. We have to stop looking for help outside of ourselves, because nobody is going to be there. And, I'm going to always say some kind of solution that I have. And right now, we don't even have to wait. We can all contribute. We can nominate the most successful black business people and put them on a committee strictly to fund and help grow black businesses. And when we build an economy, an infrastructure, then we can build our own institutions. But we have to build our own institutions to help our own people so that we can have somebody to call. Because until we start doing what we have to do, then we're unprotected. And when people know they can shed our blood and face no consequences, why would they stop? But that's why we can never stop. We have to keep going no matter what happens. And again, I appreciate everybody who was still watching and supporting and asking about me while I was going through what I was going through. Especially my sister Wanda Chavis, shouts out to her. And make sure y'all subscribe to the backup channel. The Forecast Radio 24 is in the description because YouTube, they give a strike on one video at a time. So I always have some kind of warning so they can always just suspend me or keep me from posting things anytime they want. So make sure you subscribe to that channel. And that's where most of these videos are going to go. And again, I appreciate everybody for looking out. Now, as always, man, we have got to start standing for something or we're going to keep falling for anything.